They deserved to have their story told.
I think about, like, did I cause this?
We see a lot of horrible stories where a husband kills his wife, but this one's different.
Imagine waking up one morning as a father, a husband, a man with a job, a house, a family, only for the entire illusion to disintegrate in a single unthinkable moment. Your wife is suddenly missing, your daughter's nowhere to be found. Police swarm your home, news cameras roll, your neighborhood holds its breath. But behind the tears and the interviews, the pleading eyes on national television, there's one detail that no one knows yet. You're the one who did it. This is the horrifying story of Chris Watts, a quiet man from a quiet Colorado suburb. No history of violence, no criminal record, just a soft-spoken smile, a seemingly perfect life. Behind that calm exterior was a darkness, so cold it stunned even veteran detectives.
One of the worst, if not the worst, cases I've ever had in 19 years of police work. This one does not make sense to me.
It was just too strange, too baffling for it not to leave a lasting impact in your head about how does this happen?
A darkness that didn't erupt in a fit of rage, but moved methodically and calculatingly. As he murdered his pregnant wife Shanann, then calmly drove his two daughters, Bella and Celeste, to a remote oil field and ended their lives one by one. Then he went to work, smiled at coworkers, texted, played the role of worried husband on camera. He almost got away with it until Nicole Atkinson, a close friend of Shannon Watts, also her neighbor, cracked his mask by sharing this to police.
You're Nicole?
Yes.
Okay. So what's going on?
So my friend, we were out of town for a business trip this weekend.
All right.
And I dropped her off at 2 o'clock this morning. She's 15 weeks pregnant. She wasn't feeling well. And she had a doctor's appointment this morning at 9. And I told her to let me know if she needed me to take her. She's got 2 little girls. And she was very distraught over the weekend, wasn't eating normally or drinking. And we kept trying to force it on her because she's pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
Her husband and her supposedly are separating, but she didn't know this. She thought they were just having issues. He disclosed that to me today.
Okay.
As I called him and I was like, have you talked or heard from Shanann since she left for work this morning? Because I can't get a hold of her. I've called, I've texted. Her car's in the garage. Her shoes she wears every single day are right in the front door.
And when the truth finally surfaced, it wasn't just shocking, it was unbearable. This is not just a story of murder, it is story of betrayal, so complete it turned a father into the face of evil, and a family home into the most haunting crime scene in America. Welcome to Herloz Discovery, where we don't just tell crime stories, we dissect them. We go deep into motive, mental instability, and human behavior to understand what made killers become who they are. Did you know those couples on Facebook who look like they have it all, matching outfits, perfect smiles, sweet captions like "My Rock, My World"? That was Chris and Shanann Watts and their 2 beautiful daughters, a spacious home in a peaceful Colorado suburb. Gender reveal balloons, beach selfies, holiday cheer. Every post looked like a highlight reel from a dream life. But that's the thing about social media. It hides the storm brewing beneath the surface. Shanann was magnetic, driven, a force of nature. She built a business from scratch, juggled motherhood, chronic illness, and kept their lives moving forward with energy that never seemed to run out. Chris, he was quiet, reserved, always there but somehow not present, like a man standing just outside his own life. That kind of emotional detachment might look harmless, maybe even like humility, but in forensic psychology, it's a red flag. A personality split. People like that learn to perform. They smile when expected, nod at the right times. But inside, they are shutting down, going cold, numb. And when someone like that finally breaks, it's not loud or messy. It's surgical and silent, and no one sees that it is coming. It always starts with a secret. For Chris Watts, that secret had a name: Nicole Kessinger. His co-worker at Anadarko Petroleum.
Thank you so much for coming out here with me, Christopher. I'm having a wonderful time. You mean a lot to me.
What began as harmless conversations turned into shared workouts, flirty texts, weekend sleepovers. Nicole claimed she believed he was separated, that his marriage was done, and maybe Chris let her believe that. But the truth was far messier. At home, Shanann was pregnant with their third child.
Mommy has a baby in her belly. Are you guys excited? Yes? Are you really excited?
Their daughters, Bella and Celeste, were still calling him Daddy with love in their eyes.
My daddy is a hero. He helps me grow up strong.
Yet, in his mind, Chris was already gone. Already living a fantasy where none of them existed, just him and Nicole in a clean slate life where the weight of fatherhood, finances, and responsibility didn't suffocate him anymore. But here's the part that still chills even the most seasoned investigators. He didn't try to leave, he didn't file for divorce, he didn't confess or break down, he just planned. Because for Chris Watts, freedom didn't mean walking away, it meant wiping the slate clean. And he believed the only way to do that was to destroy everything. August 13, 2018, before the sun had risen, while the world was still asleep, Chris Watts stood over his pregnant wife in their bedroom and murdered her with his bare hands. No screaming, no visible struggle, just silence. But what came next wasn't just murder. It was psychological horror. Chris wrapped Shanann's lifeless body in a sheet. Then he turned to their daughters, Bella, age 4, and Celeste, age 3, and gently woke them up. He told them they were going for a ride. He loaded Shanann's corpse into the back of his truck and placed the 2 little girls in the back seat, alive, awake, confused. Imagine being Bella, sitting next to your mother's wrapped body, asking your dad what's wrong, and getting no answer.
What's he say? Wrong. Yeah, she had her little pink blanket with her.
And where was Shanann at that point?
Yeah, she's pretty much on the bed, but she was face down. I put Shanann in that sheet, carried her downstairs, backed my truck up.
So you put Shanann in the truck, and then you put the 2 girls in the truck?
Sitting in the back with in that bed sheet.
So Shanann was back there too?
On the floor.
What did they say about Shanann being on the floor?
She said, "Mom, you okay?"
What did you tell them?
She'll be fine.
For over an hour, Chris drove them out to the oil field. No music, no words, just the weight of death in the car. When they arrived, Shanann was buried in a shallow grave. Then Chris turned to Celeste, smothered her with a blanket, and her older sister Bella. Watching it all, begged for her life. "Daddy, no," she cried. But Chris didn't stop. He smothered Bella too, and then dropped both girls, his own daughters, into separate oil tanks. No mercy. No hesitation, just methodical execution.
When I was driving up there, they were just sitting there just kind of asleep or kind of just holding on to each other, laying in each other's laps. Honestly, I try to picture that whole ride, it's 45 minutes to an hour ride out there. And it's just couldn't I have saved my girl's life? Couldn't I have done something? Why did I do it? I don't know. I wanted all my life was to be a dad, just have, kids, and they loved me, they, all that, and it just nothing made sense.
So what happened when you got out there?
See the birds flying over, and did she start with all? I think so. It went down to Bella. What happened there? What happened to Cece? Every time I pulled my eyes, I just hear her saying, "Daddy, no," and that was it. I hear that every day.
This wasn't a man who snapped. This was a man who chose cold, empty, and calculated, and that's what makes this case so devastating. It wasn't just that he killed them, it's that he could look them in the eyes and still do it. That morning, Chris Watts did something that still haunts everyone who's seen it. He went on television, standing in front of his home where he had just murdered his entire family. He looked straight into the camera and pleaded for help to find his missing wife and daughters. But it wasn't a plea, it was a performance. Arms crossed, voice flat, eyes dry. There were no tears. No urgency, just the hollow script of a man rehearsing grief he didn't feel. To the public, it looked odd. But to those who knew Shanann, it felt wrong. And to investigators, it was a red flag. Within 48 hours, the facade began to crumble. Bodycam footage caught his nervous tics. GPS data placed him at the oil site and his timeline full of holes. Then came the polygraph. The examiner didn't play games.
Did you physically cause Shanann's disappearance?
No.
Are you lying about the last time you saw Shanann?
No.
Do you know where Shanann is now?
No.
This portion of the test is complete.
You did not pass the test, she told him. There's absolutely no way you're going to get away with this. Chris paused, broke, and confessed. The truth came spilling out, not from guilt, but because the mask had finally cracked. The same man who stood on television begging for his family's return. Finally, he was also the one who made sure they would never come home. So why would a quiet, seemingly normal man destroy everything that mattered? Why would he murder the very people who loved him unconditionally? That's where psychology pulls back the mask. Chris Watts wasn't a monster in the way we usually imagine. No wild eyes, no violent past, no criminal record. He blended in, the guy next door, the dad at birthday parties. But in the world of criminal psychology, there is a term for men like him, family annihilator. These aren't killers driven by sudden rage or random chaos. They're men who plan, who calculate, who see their families not as loved ones, but as burdens, as obstacles. For some, it's financial collapse. For others, shame or failure. For Chris, it was the collapse of his double life. He wanted to start fresh with his new lover, with no debts, no responsibilities, no consequences. And somewhere along the way, Shanann, Bella, and Celeste stopped being real to him. They became part of the problem. That's what makes this case so chilling, because this wasn't a man who snapped. It was a man who decided, who fantasized, and then followed through. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to. And in the end, he didn't just choose freedom over family. He chose fantasy over flesh and blood. Chris Watts eventually confessed everything. From prison, he laid out the full horror in chilling, emotionless detail. But one moment, one sentence has burned itself into the minds of anyone who's heard it. As he smothered Bella, his 4-year-old daughter, the one who always called him her hero. She looked at him and said, "Daddy, no, just think about that." A child's last breath used not to scream, but to plead with the father she trusted. That's the weight he now carries. Not just the crime, but the memory. He is serving 5 life sentences with no possibility of parole. Nicole Kessinger vanished from the public eye, swallowed by the fallout. And the Watts home in Frederick, Colorado, it still stands. Empty, silent. A monument to a life that looked perfect on the outside, but hid a darkness no one saw coming. Evil doesn't always wear a mask. It doesn't always shout or wave a weapon. Sometimes it wears a wedding ring. Sometimes it's the soft-spoken guy next door, grilling burgers, waving at neighbors, posing for family photos with a forced smile and dead eyes. Chris Watts didn't kill out of rage. He killed out of cowardice because he couldn't face discomfort, couldn't say, "I am done," couldn't live with the shame of leaving. So instead, he erased them, Shanann, Bella, and Celeste. Not because they wronged him, but because they were in the way. He wanted a reset, a new life, clean and simple. And he almost got away with it. That's what makes this story so terrifying. Not just the murder, but how close evil came to walking away. The case is closed, the confessions have been made, but the questions still linger. How does a father go from bedtime stories to murder? What kind of emptiness, desperation, or darkness festers beneath a perfect smile? And most terrifying of all, how many more Chris Watts are out there, blending in, hiding in plain sight, until it's too late? May Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico rest in peace. May we never stop searching for the cracks before they shatter everything. And may we never stop asking why.